The morning had begun like any other, with the pale sun rising over the cities and deserts of Earth. People woke to alarms, morning news, and the quiet hum of satellites orbiting silently above. It was easy to forget just how dependent the world had become on those orbiting machines. Satellites guided planes, ships, and cars. They controlled communications, weather systems, and even aspects of energy distribution. Humanity had grown used to perfection in orbit, as if those small metallic sentinels were always there to watch over them. But that morning, something changed. At the International Observatory in Chile, Dr. Elena Reyes adjusted the lens of her telescope and blinked at the data streaming across her screens. "That can't be right," she muttered. She leaned closer. The object on her monitor was unlike any satellite, space station, or debris she had ever seen. It moved silently, with perfect precision, cutting across the sky at speeds that made normal propulsion impossible. The alarm she triggered immediately pulled in colleagues from around the globe. Satellites in the geostationary orbit around Earth were sending similar signals. Data analysts in Tokyo, Moscow, and New York confirmed the readings. Something was in orbit, and it was not human. In Washington, the Situation Room was buzzing with activity. Military leaders, scientists, and government officials gathered around holographic projections of Earth's orbit. Every eye was fixed on the strange, shimmering ship. It glowed faintly, with surfaces that seemed to shift and ripple like liquid metal. It had no wings, no thrusters, no visible propulsion systems. It simply appeared. Dr. Reyes continued to speak over the feed. "It's moving intelligently, not randomly. It seems to be observing our satellites and— Wait! Look!" The monitors flickered. Every satellite in orbit went dark. One by one, communications, GPS, weather observation, gone. For a moment, there was silence. Then chaos erupted. Air traffic control centers lost contact with planes mid-flight. Ships at sea could no longer communicate with headquarters. Financial markets halted, unable to process transactions dependent on satellites. Governments scrambled to maintain order. The power of the satellites had been absolute, and suddenly humanity was without it. And yet, even in the chaos, a spark of determination began to emerge. In a small laboratory tucked into the mountains of Switzerland, Dr. Tariq Mahmoud and his team had been working on radio arrays that did not rely on satellites. When the blackout struck, they went into overdrive. Using decades-old technology, makeshift antennas, and improvised signal processors, they began to piece together a way to communicate over short distances. It was slow, but it was a start. Meanwhile, aboard the International Space Station, Commander Elena Vasquez and her crew watched the silent intruder hover above Earth. Through the station's external cameras, they could see the ship in all its alien majesty. It was massive, far larger than any human-built craft, and its surface shimmered with colors that shifted in ways human eyes struggled to comprehend. The crew felt awe and fear in equal measure. "What is it doing?" asked Lieutenant Chen, voice tight over the comm. "I don't know," Vasquez replied. "But it's not attacking. At least, not yet. It seems observing." Back on Earth, engineers and scientists worked feverishly. They restored partial communications with emergency networks. Ground-based GPS systems, though limited, allowed planes to land safely. Data packets were rerouted through fiber optic networks, and power grids were stabilized using manual controls. Humanity was adapting. The ship remained still for hours, hovering over the Pacific, its shimmering hull reflecting the blue of the ocean below. Slowly, patterns of light began to pulse across its surface. At first, people assumed it was random, but then scientists noticed something remarkable. The pulses seemed to respond to signals sent from Earth. Dr. Reyes was among the first to hypothesize that the ship might be intelligent, perhaps even sentient, trying to communicate. The news spread quickly. Governments, once panicked, now issued statements asking citizens to remain calm. Social media lit up with speculation. Was it an alien probe, a warning, an invitation? Fear and curiosity collided, and for the first time in decades, humanity collectively looked up at the sky, united in wonder and uncertainty. On the ISS, Commander Vasquez decided to take a calculated risk. Using the station's communication arrays, she sent a series of structured signals toward the ship, based on mathematical constants and universal patterns. Prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, and basic chemical symbols flashed across the void of space. The crew waited, holding their collective breath. Hours passed without a response. Then, slowly, the ship pulsed again. This time in patterns that matched the sequences the crew had sent. It was a simple acknowledgement, but it was enough. Humanity was not alone, and for the first time, the terrifying presence in orbit felt less like a threat and more like a challenge. Dr. Mahmoud's ground team had been analyzing the ship's energy signature. Unlike anything known to human science, it did not consume fuel in any conventional sense. It seemed to manipulate gravity, magnetic fields, and even light itself to maneuver. Some of the brightest minds on Earth were drawn into the mystery, eager to understand the impossible. Amid the tension, human ingenuity continued to shine. In New York, engineers devised ways to adapt old communication satellites to function partially, using independent energy sources. In rural communities across the globe, amateur radio operators linked neighborhoods, creating local networks that kept communities informed. Humanity's ability to adapt, innovate, and cooperate became the first weapon against uncertainty and fear. At night, the ship continued to hover silently above Earth. Its pulsing lights cast a glow on cities, forests, and oceans. Children watched from their bedroom windows, dreaming of distant worlds. Scientists studied the readings, awed by the technology they could scarcely imagine. The entire planet felt smaller, yet somehow more connected, as if the presence of the ship reminded them that humanity's resilience had limits only in imagination, not in spirit. In orbit, the ISS crew had a growing sense of awe. Lieutenant Chen suggested, "Maybe it's not here to harm us. Maybe it's curious, watching us." Vasquez nodded. "Or testing us, seeing what we're capable of." Back on Earth, Dr. Reyes worked late into the night, charting the ship's movements. She realized it was not random. It adjusted its orbit to hover above areas where humans were demonstrating creativity and resilience, solutions, improvisations, attempts at communication. It was as if the ship recognized effort and ingenuity. From the chaos, small victories emerged. Farmers used handheld devices to coordinate deliveries, doctors adapted old telemedicine systems, and children in schools learned about teamwork in real time as communities shared information in innovative ways. Humanity, once so dependent on satellites and automation, rediscovered its own resourcefulness. As days passed, patterns became clearer. The ship remained above Earth, observing but never attacking. It moved when humans approached with solutions, yet stayed distant when fear and aggression dominated. Slowly, a narrative formed across Earth. The silent ship was not a conqueror. It was a judge, a watcher, a test of human potential. Dr. Mahmoud's team discovered something extraordinary. Signals emitted by the ship resonated with human brainwaves in subtle ways, almost as if the ship could sense thought patterns. The implications were staggering. Humanity was not merely under observation. The ship was studying human adaptability, intelligence, and perhaps even morality. For the first time in human history, the world faced a challenge not with weapons or dominance, but with creativity, cooperation, and ingenuity. Entire nations collaborated openly, sharing information and resources. Conflicts paused as the mystery above Earth demanded a collective response. The children of Earth, in schools and playgrounds, became small witnesses to history. Teachers explained the orbiting ship and its silent presence. Parents encouraged curiosity. In every city, town, and village, people looked up at the sky, wondering what it would take to earn the ship's acknowledgement. Humanity had been shaken, yes, but it had also been awakened. In orbit, Vasquez reflected on the strange shift in human behavior. For decades, humanity had been fragmented, often focused on competition, division, and short-term gains. Yet now, faced with the unknown, people were collaborating, innovating, and thriving. She realized something fundamental. Earth was alive with potential, and humans were showing the universe what they were capable of. As the first part of this unprecedented encounter drew to a close, the ship remained silently above, its lights pulsing in patterns that no one could yet fully understand. Humanity had survived the initial shock. Fear had not consumed them. Instead, they had adapted, persevered, and reached for solutions that no single nation could achieve alone. The silent ship in orbit was no longer just an object of fear. It had become a mirror, reflecting human creativity, determination, and unity. And somewhere, deep in the minds of those who watched, a new understanding began to take root. The challenge had only just begun, and humanity was ready to rise to it. The story of the new ship entering orbit had begun, and the world was waiting, watching, and learning. One pulse at a time. The days following the satellite blackout were tense, but alive with energy. Humanity was learning to function without its high-tech network of orbital eyes, and in that vacuum, creativity blossomed. People were forced to communicate through simpler means: radio waves, fiber networks, and even old-fashioned messengers in some regions. Cities organized neighborhood networks, and rural communities discovered a new sense of unity. It was an era of improvisation, born out of necessity, and the mysterious ship in orbit became the silent spark that ignited it. On the International Space Station, Commander Elena Vasquez and her crew continued their vigil. The ship hovered silently above Earth, seemingly unaffected by human activity. Its shifting surface reflected light in complex patterns, as though it was alive and breathing. The crew could not touch it, could not interact with it directly, but they were determined to understand it. Lieutenant Chen, analyzing its energy patterns, said, "It's as if the ship can sense us. Look at these pulses. They change when we adjust our signals. It's intelligent." Vasquez nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. "We have to be careful. It's watching. Everything we do is being recorded." On Earth, Dr. Elena Reyes worked tirelessly to decode the patterns the ship emitted. She noticed that whenever humanity demonstrated cooperation or clever problem-solving, the ship's lights would respond with a subtle shimmer. When conflict, panic, or selfishness dominated, the pulses dimmed or shifted irregularly. It was as if the ship was testing more than technology. It was testing character. In New York, an improvised communications hub had been established in an old subway station. Engineers rerouted fiber optic lines and old microwave relays to connect hundreds of neighborhoods. The system was crude, but it worked. People shared news, coordinated relief efforts, and even sent signals that might reach the ship. A team of students in Mumbai, using a homemade telescope and basic radio equipment, was doing the same. Across the globe, humanity was connected in a web of effort, ingenuity, and hope. The first real breakthrough came when Dr. Tariq Mahmoud and his team in Switzerland managed to transmit a structured message to the ship using a combination of radio pulses and light flashes. They sent prime numbers, universal mathematical constants, and chemical symbols, messages that any intelligent civilization could understand. At first, nothing happened. Days passed, and anxiety built. Humanity was learning patience, a skill often forgotten in an era of instant communication. Then, slowly, the ship responded. Its surface pulsed in patterns that mirrored the sequences sent by humans. It was a simple acknowledgement, but it was enough to ignite a surge of hope. Humanity was not alone, and the ship recognized them. In classrooms and laboratories around the world, people celebrated the achievement. Children were inspired, imagining alien worlds and distant civilizations. Scientists marveled at the possibilities, wondering what knowledge could be shared if humanity proved worthy. Governments, though cautious, began to collaborate openly. Old rivalries were set aside as Earth faced a shared opportunity and challenge. Despite the excitement, fear remained. Some political leaders and military officials argued for aggression, suggesting that humanity should attempt to disable the ship or force it away. Others warned that any hostile action could provoke retaliation. Dr. Reyes and Dr. Mahmoud spoke at a global conference broadcast across the improvised communication networks. "We cannot assume the worst," Dr. Reyes said. "We do not understand its intentions, but we do understand ourselves. And we are proving that we can adapt, innovate, and cooperate under pressure. That is our strength." In orbit, Vasquez observed the crew's own experiments with communication. The ship responded to sequences transmitted from the ISS, echoing them with intricate pulses. Lieutenant Chen suggested that perhaps the ship could even sense thought patterns, or at least the intent behind actions. The crew marveled at the idea that something so alien could study human ingenuity so closely. Back on Earth, the effects of the ship's silent observation began to ripple through society. Communities collaborated in ways previously thought impossible. Engineers and scientists devised alternative energy grids, farmers coordinated distribution networks without GPS, and hospitals maintained emergency systems with makeshift communication lines. People learned to depend not on technology alone, but on human creativity and teamwork. As the days passed, the ship's behavior became more curious. It began to project faint holographic images into space, visible through advanced telescopes. The images were abstract at first, patterns of light and geometric shapes, but gradually they evolved. Dr. Reyes hypothesized that the ship was presenting puzzles or challenges, testing the ability of humans to interpret and respond. The first public challenge appeared one morning over the Pacific Ocean. A glowing, intricate pattern shimmered in the sky, composed of lines, circles, and symbols that shifted continuously. Scientists worldwide observed it through telescopes and cameras, sharing their data through the improvised networks. The pattern appeared to respond to analysis, changing slightly when humans interpreted it correctly. "It's like a test," Dr. Mahmoud said, eyes wide with excitement. "It's giving us problems to solve, and it's observing how we work together." The pattern remained in the sky for hours. Teams of mathematicians, engineers, and students across the globe worked feverishly to decode it. Messages were sent in response using coordinated pulses, lasers, and radio waves. Every successful transmission triggered a shimmer across the ship's surface, an acknowledgement that humanity's solution had been recognized. Even ordinary people were swept up in the challenge. Children in schools participated in decoding exercises. Families used home equipment to send pulses and light signals. Communities in remote areas sent messages using mirrors and fire beacons. Every contribution mattered, and the collective effort became a source of pride. Humanity had been tested before, in wars and disasters, but never on a scale like this, where intelligence, creativity, and unity were the keys to survival and recognition. Meanwhile, tension simmered beneath the surface. Some governments pushed for weaponized responses. Military planners debated the use of orbital defenses and high-powered lasers to disable the ship. Dr. Reyes and Dr. Mahmoud warned that any aggressive action could be catastrophic. The ship had shown no aggression, and there was every reason to believe that hostility would provoke retaliation. public protests and debates erupted across cities, with citizens demanding peaceful, intelligent engagement rather than violence. On the ISS, Vasquez and her crew conducted experiments to learn more about the ship's responsiveness. They projected sequences of lights and pulses designed to mimic human thought patterns. To their amazement, the ship mirrored the patterns with subtle variations, almost as if it were experimenting in return. Vasquez realized that the ship was not merely observing, it was interacting. It wanted to measure not only intellect, but also creativity and adaptability. Dr. Reyes began to notice a pattern. The ship seemed to reward solutions that were innovative, collaborative, and ethical. Attempts that relied solely on brute force or unilateral thinking were ignored or met with confusion. It was as if the ship was teaching humanity that its value lay not in weapons or dominance, but in ingenuity and cooperation. As the days turned into weeks, humanity's response grew more sophisticated. Complex networks of communication and analysis sprang up, linking continents in real time despite the absence of satellites. The global effort became a living demonstration of human potential, visible to the ship above. Every calculation, every creative solution, every cooperative effort was part of a vast experiment, one that humans did not yet fully understand. One evening, as the sun set across multiple time zones, the ship sent its first clear message. Using holographic projections, it displayed a series of symbols that translated to a basic greeting in multiple human languages. We observe. We learn. Show your potential. The message, though simple, sent waves of excitement and awe across the globe. Humanity had taken the first step in communication with a truly alien intelligence. In classrooms, students worked to interpret the message. Scientists debated its implications. Families gathered to watch the patterns in the sky. Even political leaders paused to acknowledge the significance. For once, the world's attention was united in wonder and determination rather than division. The ship remained silent beyond its pulses and projections. But the humans were not idle. Dr. Mahmoud's team developed simulations to predict its behavior. Vasquez's ISS crew experimented with new sequences. Communities on Earth adapted rapidly, creating messages that combined mathematics, music, and visual patterns, seeking to demonstrate not just intelligence, but imagination and culture. Through it all, humanity learned something profound. The blackout had forced them to rely on themselves, not technology. The challenge of the ship reminded them that survival depended not on fear, not on power, but on cooperation, creativity, and resilience. Ordinary people were now participants in a test that could shape the future of civilization, and the ship continued to watch. Its pulsing lights reflected the collective effort, shining brighter when humanity demonstrated collaboration and cleverness, dimming when conflict, fear, or selfishness arose. Humanity had passed its first test simply by working together, improvising, and refusing to succumb to panic. Vasquez looked out at the ship one evening from the ISS, a sense of awe in her eyes. "It's not here to attack us," she said softly. "It's here to see what we can do." Lieutenant Chen nodded. "It's testing us, watching how we respond under pressure, and I think we're doing well." Across the planet, humanity continued its effort. Engineers sent sequences, students solved puzzles, and communities shared knowledge. The ship's presence became a silent motivator, a reminder that even in the darkest uncertainty, creativity and cooperation could shine. For the first time, humans were working not just for survival, but for recognition by a higher intelligence. And in that work, they rediscovered something forgotten, that their greatest power was not technology, not weapons, not wealth, but the human mind and spirit, united in purpose and ingenuity. The silent ship in orbit pulsed above, observing patterns of brilliance and effort below. Humanity had made the first contact, and the challenge had begun in earnest. What lay ahead was unknown, but one thing was certain. Earth would rise to meet it, not through fear or domination, but through intelligence, courage, and collaboration. The story was far from over. The ship had entered orbit silently, and humanity had responded with determination, creativity, and hope. And now, the true test of ingenuity and unity was only just beginning. The days had grown longer with anticipation as humanity adjusted to life under the silent gaze of the ship. Communications, though limited, had become more efficient, and people had learned to work in ways they had never imagined. Neighborhood networks, improvised emergency systems, and school programs had evolved into a complex web of human ingenuity that stretched across the globe. Yet the mysterious ship remained above, its pulsing lights signaling that it was far from finished with its observations. One morning, scientists around the world noticed a change. The ship projected a massive, intricate holographic pattern over the Pacific Ocean. Unlike the previous pulses or sequences, this display was enormous, stretching for hundreds of kilometers. It was composed of shapes, symbols, and lines that shifted continuously. At first, the meaning was impossible to interpret. The pattern moved too quickly for any single group to decode it, and no individual effort seemed sufficient. Dr. Elena Reyes stared at the live feed from her telescope in Chile, her brow furrowed in concentration. "This is more than a message," she said. "It's a challenge. The ship is testing our ability to work together on a global scale." Around the world, teams formed quickly. Governments, scientists, engineers, and civilians worked side by side. Students in India, teachers in Brazil, programmers in Canada, and engineers in Germany collaborated in a coordinated effort that had never existed before. The challenge was not just intelligence, it was collaboration, creativity, and adaptability under pressure. On the International Space Station, Commander Elena Vasquez and her crew monitored the ship's activity closely. "It's massive," Lieutenant Chen said, eyes fixed on the display. "The pattern keeps evolving. It's as if it's responding to our attempts to decode it." Vasquez nodded. "Then it wants more than observation. It wants us to demonstrate something uniquely human, our ingenuity." As the global effort intensified, humans began to notice subtle rules. The ship responded positively to solutions that combined multiple disciplines: mathematics, art, and problem-solving. Single-minded approaches were ignored. The ship rewarded creativity, innovation, and collaboration. People who had once worked in isolation now found themselves coordinating with others across continents, sharing data and ideas in real time. In Tokyo, a group of programmers discovered that the ship's patterns could be influenced by musical sequences. Certain harmonic combinations caused the lights on the ship to pulse more brightly, almost like applause. Across the ocean in Brazil, engineers experimented with laser pulses to encode mathematical symbols into the light patterns. Slowly, a global system of communication began to emerge, with humans contributing in ways that combined science, art, and ingenuity. Amid the excitement, there were moments of frustration. Not every solution worked, and the ship ignored many attempts. Groups disagreed, conflicts arose, and mistakes were made. Yet even failures were valuable. Scientists discovered that the ship's lights responded not only to correct answers, but to effort and creative approaches. Every attempt taught humans how to adapt, refine, and collaborate more effectively. Dr. Tariq Mahmoud watched the patterns carefully from his lab in Switzerland. "It's like a game," he said, "but the rules are changing constantly. We have to innovate, think creatively, and coordinate. That's what it's testing." On Earth, ordinary citizens became part of the effort in ways they had never imagined. Farmers sent weather data to help interpret patterns. Children solved logic puzzles that became part of a larger sequence. Communities used improvised signals, from mirrors reflecting sunlight to synchronized lanterns, to participate. Humanity had become a living network, demonstrating creativity, cooperation, and resilience on a scale never before achieved. The first major breakthrough came when a collaborative team in Europe and Asia realized that the ship's holographic pattern could be interpreted as a three-dimensional puzzle. The symbols represented interconnected systems that needed to be aligned correctly. When humans worked together to solve it, projecting solutions using light, radio, and other methods, the ship responded with a pulse so bright it could be seen from Earth without instruments. The pattern stabilized for a brief moment, signaling approval. On the ISS, Vasquez watched the pulse and felt a sense of awe. "It's acknowledging us," she said. "We've passed the first real test." But the ship's challenge was far from over. Over the next days, it increased in complexity. Patterns shifted faster, sequences became multidimensional, and the ship introduced unpredictable variables. Yet humanity adapted. Teams developed new methods to predict changes, combining artificial intelligence with human intuition. Communication channels were streamlined, mistakes analyzed quickly, and solutions were shared globally. The world became a vast laboratory, testing ingenuity, creativity, and collaboration simultaneously. As the challenge escalated, new lessons emerged. Leaders realized that cooperation across borders was more effective than competition. Scientists discovered that combining diverse skills, engineering, mathematics, art, music, produced solutions the ship could recognize. And citizens discovered that their individual efforts mattered, even if small, when combined with a global network. Humanity was learning to operate as a single, intelligent organism. Despite progress, fear and skepticism persisted. Some nations still advocated for a military approach. News outlets speculated about potential danger. But the global majority understood that the challenge required intelligence, not weapons. Attempts to interfere aggressively were quickly ignored by the ship, reinforcing the lesson that cooperation and ingenuity, not force, were the true measures of worth. In one particularly memorable moment, a team of students in India proposed using a combination of sound, light, and vibration to communicate patterns back to the ship. The experiment was risky, using equipment that had never been tested in this way. When the signal reached the ship, its surface pulsed with brilliant, ever-changing colors. The children celebrated as they realized their idea had succeeded. Humanity had not only responded, but innovated in a way the ship could not have predicted. This success had a ripple effect. People across continents became inspired to contribute new ideas. Artists incorporated mathematical sequences into music. Engineers built devices to project complex visual patterns. Children participated in puzzle solving and problem interpretation. The ship's test had become a platform for human creativity, demonstrating that intelligence was not just about data, but imagination, collaboration, and adaptability. In Switzerland, Dr. Mahmoud reflected on the lessons humanity had learned. "We are showing the ship what we are capable of," he said. "Not just technology, but our spirit, our creativity, and our ability to work together. This is humanity at its best." On the ISS, Vasquez and her crew continued to experiment with communication methods. They used the station's instruments to project light patterns that incorporated human emotional signals derived from neural data collected with consent. The ship responded, mirroring their patterns in subtle variations. It was clear that the ship valued innovation and adaptability as much as correctness. Back on Earth, ordinary people began to feel a sense of pride. They were participants in something larger than themselves, contributing to a global achievement that had no precedent. Communities once divided by distance, culture, or politics now worked together with a shared goal. The ship had inadvertently united humanity through a test of intelligence, creativity, and cooperation. Then, as the challenge continued, the ship introduced a new variable. Portions of its pattern began to change in real time based on environmental conditions, the angle of sunlight, the tides, even atmospheric pressure. Humans had to adapt to a dynamic puzzle that changed not just with their actions, but with the natural world. It was a test of observation, analysis, and improvisation. Dr. Reyes realized the significance immediately. It's testing our ability to respond to complexity and unpredictability. It wants to see if we can handle variables we cannot control and still innovate. Teams quickly adapted, using environmental data collected from weather stations, satellites still operational in limited capacity, and local observations. Solutions became more sophisticated, requiring not just analysis, but imagination and coordination on a scale never attempted before. The ship's lights pulsed brighter with every successful adaptation. On the ISS, Vasquez noted the subtle changes. It's rewarding ingenuity that integrates knowledge, creativity, and teamwork. Every bright pulse is a recognition of human effort. As the first major phase of the challenge approached its conclusion, the global effort reached a new level of sophistication. Humans had not only solved problems, but created entirely new methods of communication, analysis, and collaboration. The world had become a living demonstration of intelligence, ingenuity, and cooperation. A showcase of what humans could achieve when united in purpose. Finally, after days of continuous effort, the ship projected a final sequence for this phase. It was a pattern that required all the knowledge and experience humans had gained so far. Teams around the globe coordinated their efforts, integrating mathematics, music, visual patterns, environmental data, and human creativity. The sequence was complex and required simultaneous problem-solving across multiple continents. When humanity succeeded, the ship responded in a display that filled the sky with shimmering light. It was a silent, magnificent acknowledgement of accomplishment, visible even to those without instruments. People around the world celebrated, not just the success, but what it represented. Humanity had faced the first real test and risen to it. They had demonstrated intelligence, creativity, and cooperation on a global scale. Vasquez looked out from the ISS, eyes reflecting the brilliance of the ship. "They've seen us," she said. "They've seen what humans can do when we work together. This is just the beginning, but we've proven ourselves." Dr. Mahmoud, speaking to a global audience through improvised communication networks, added, "We are learning that intelligence is more than data. It is creativity, collaboration, and adaptability. Today, we have shown that humanity can meet any challenge when we combine our minds and hearts." The ship, still silent above, had begun to retreat slightly, as if giving humans space to reflect on their accomplishment. Its pulsing lights continued to shimmer in subtle patterns, hinting that more challenges lay ahead. Humanity had passed the first major test, but the journey was far from over. The ship had made its expectations clear. It valued ingenuity, collaboration, and resilience, and Earth had responded with brilliance. Across continents, people looked up at the sky with renewed hope. They had faced the unknown, risen to its challenge, and demonstrated their potential. Humanity had been tested, and it had triumphed, not with weapons, not with dominance, but with creativity, intelligence, and unity. And now, as the final pulses of this challenge faded into the atmosphere, the world waited for what the ship would demand next. Humanity had proven its capability, but the ultimate test was still to come. The silent ship in orbit pulsed faintly, a constant reminder that the universe was watching, and that humanity's true potential had only begun to emerge. The days following humanity's first major success were filled with anticipation and preparation. People across the world continued their work, refining the systems they had developed, improving communication networks, and sharing innovations. The ship in orbit remained silent, its pulsing lights both a comfort and a reminder. Humanity had passed one phase of the test, but everyone knew the ultimate challenge lay ahead. On the International Space Station, Commander Elena Vasquez and her crew watched the ship carefully. Its surface shimmered in patterns that seemed to anticipate human thought and action. Lieutenant Chen studied the data and said quietly, "I think it's preparing the next stage. This time, it will be even more complex. It wants to see how we respond under pressure." Vasquez nodded. "We've proven ourselves so far. Now we need to show that humanity can rise above fear, think creatively, and work together even under the greatest challenge." On Earth, scientists and engineers gathered in coordinated centers. Schools, universities, and research institutes contributed to the effort. Citizens of every age and skill level were involved. People realized that this was not just a test for scientists or leaders, it was a test for all of humanity. The ship's silent observation had united the world in a way that no event in history ever had. Dr. Elena Reyes studied the ship's patterns closely. She noticed that the new sequences were not just puzzles. They were simulations of complex systems, ecosystems, weather patterns, and human-made infrastructures. The ship wanted humans to solve problems that were dynamic and interconnected, to demonstrate intelligence that was both deep and flexible. In Tokyo, programmers developed software capable of real-time analysis of the ship's changing patterns. In Europe, mathematicians collaborated with musicians and artists to create sequences that combined logic, beauty, and creativity. In Africa and South America, engineers and local communities improvised ways to feed environmental and observational data into the global effort. Every contribution mattered, and every success was acknowledged by subtle pulses of light from the ship. Vasquez and her crew experimented on the ISS with new methods. They combined light sequences, electromagnetic signals, and even simple behavioral patterns to interact with the ship. It responded with increasing complexity, showing that it was not only testing the accuracy of human solutions, but also the ability to innovate and adapt. The first major phase of this final challenge involved a sequence of environmental simulations. The ship projected holographic representations of rivers, forests, cities, and weather systems. Teams across the globe had to identify patterns, predict outcomes, and send solutions that stabilized the simulations. Mistakes were opportunities to learn. When humans failed, the ship did not punish. It simply adjusted the sequence, challenging them to refine their methods. In the deserts of Australia, a team of engineers used solar-powered drones to gather data on sunlight and atmospheric conditions. In Canada, researchers measured ocean currents to provide real-time inputs. Children in schools coded algorithms that became part of larger solutions. Across continents, humans were thinking as one organism, their combined intelligence amplified by coordination and creativity. As the challenge intensified, the ship introduced variables that could not be controlled directly. Sudden weather changes, unpredictable pattern shifts, and even randomized sequences that required improvisation. Humans responded by collaborating faster, thinking more creatively, and integrating knowledge across disciplines. They learned that intelligence alone was not enough. They needed imagination, flexibility, and trust in one another. Dr. Tariq Mahmoud, coordinating efforts from Switzerland, realized the true purpose of the ship's test. "It's not about data or computation," he said. "It's about how humans approach complexity. It's about how we think, adapt, and collaborate. That is what it values." Meanwhile, ordinary citizens continued to play a critical role. Farmers adjusted crop data and shared environmental information. Children solved logic and visual puzzles. Artists encoded sequences into music and light patterns. Communities without access to high-tech equipment used mirrors, lanterns, and even smoke signals to participate. Every contribution mattered, reinforcing the idea that humanity's strength lay in collective effort. On the ISS, Vasquez reflected on the global effort. Humans have learned to work together even when challenged by uncertainty. We've proven creativity, adaptability, and resilience. That is what the ship is looking for. As the final phase approached, the ship projected a massive, multi-dimensional sequence into space. It was a combination of environmental, mathematical, artistic, and cultural patterns, changing constantly. The sequence was nearly impossible to solve through conventional methods. Teams across the world realized that the solution required not just intelligence, but coordination, imagination, and intuition on a global scale. Scientists, engineers, artists, and ordinary citizens worked in perfect synchrony. They shared observations, combined calculations, and adapted strategies in real time. Mistakes were corrected quickly. Lessons were learned, and solutions improved continuously. Every contribution, no matter how small, became a part of a vast, integrated response. The ship responded to human effort with shimmering pulses of light that traversed its entire surface. The intensity of the pulses reflected the creativity and collaboration being displayed. People watched in awe, realizing that their work was being acknowledged. Humanity had transformed into a single, intelligent entity, operating with purpose, adaptability, and ingenuity. In classrooms, children learned that their curiosity and problem-solving mattered. Families discovered that teamwork could achieve extraordinary results. Cities saw citizens cooperating on projects that had previously seemed impossible. The challenge had transformed humanity, showing them the true power of collective effort. As the final solution came together, the ship pulsed with brilliance. Its lights formed patterns that conveyed recognition and approval. It was clear. Humanity had passed the ultimate test. The ship, which had arrived silently and without warning, had witnessed the full potential of human creativity, adaptability, and unity. On the ISS, Vasquez felt a profound sense of awe. "It's responding," she said. "It's acknowledging everything we've done. Humanity has proven itself." Dr. Reyes, watching from Chile, was equally moved. "We've shown what humans can achieve when we work together, when we innovate, when we embrace creativity and collaboration. We've earned this acknowledgement." Then, without warning, the ship began to descend slightly in orbit, projecting a clear holographic message visible to all Earth's telescopes and cameras. The message was simple yet profound. Humanity observed, intelligence demonstrated, creativity and unity recognized. Collaboration is strength. Prepare for shared knowledge. The announcement sent waves of excitement and awe around the globe. Humanity had not only survived the challenge, it had triumphed through ingenuity, cooperation, and courage. People celebrated together, aware that their accomplishments had been recognized by an intelligence far beyond their own understanding. The ship did not attack, nor did it demand anything more. Instead, it shared knowledge. Data streams containing advanced scientific principles, energy solutions, and space travel technologies were transmitted to Earth's scientists. These were not tools of domination, but gifts of insight, intended to elevate human civilization. Humanity had been tested and had proven its worthiness, not through weapons or aggression, but through thought, creativity, and collaboration. On Earth, the celebration was global. Governments, scientists, engineers, and ordinary citizens rejoiced. Children marveled at the new knowledge, dreaming of distant worlds and discoveries. Communities that had once been isolated found connections through shared achievement. The ship's silent arrival had transformed humanity, showing them that intelligence, creativity, and unity were the keys to survival and growth in the universe. On the ISS, Vasquez looked out at the shimmering surface of the ship, reflecting the light of Earth below. "It has given us a gift," she said quietly. "Not just knowledge, but understanding. It has shown us what we are capable of when we work together." Dr. Mahmoud, speaking through global networks, emphasized the deeper lesson. "We have learned that strength does not lie in dominance or control. True power comes from creativity, cooperation, and the courage to face the unknown. Humanity has proven itself today. The universe has taken notice. Over the following weeks, scientists began to integrate the knowledge shared by the ship. Advanced energy systems were tested, new methods of communication explored, and plans for future space travel initiated. Humanity had been given not a weapon, but a path forward, a path toward growth, exploration, and collaboration beyond their planet. Children, inspired by the events, began learning science, mathematics, and problem-solving with renewed vigor. Schools incorporated lessons about creativity, collaboration, and adaptation. People everywhere realized that intelligence was not only about learning facts, but about thinking, creating, and working together. The ship, once a silent and mysterious observer, had become a symbol of hope. It demonstrated that the universe was vast and unknown, but that humanity could meet challenges with courage, ingenuity, and unity. Its departure from Earth orbit was slow, deliberate, almost ceremonial. Pulses of light shimmered as it receded into the distance, leaving humanity with knowledge, inspiration, and the understanding that they were capable of greatness. In the months that followed, Earth was transformed. Energy shortages were reduced, technology advanced, and societies learned to cooperate on scales previously unimaginable. People remembered the lessons of the ship. Creativity, adaptability, and collaboration were the true measures of intelligence. Humanity had been tested and had excelled. Vasquez, aboard the ISS, reflected on the journey. We were observed, challenged, and inspired. And we proved that humans are capable of extraordinary things, not just surviving, but thriving. The ship came to test us, and in return, it gave us the gift of knowledge and perspective. Dr. Reyes summarized the experience in a global broadcast. The arrival of the ship reminded us that intelligence is not just data or technology. It is creativity, collaboration, courage, and adaptability. Humanity has shown that it can rise to any challenge, not through fear or power, but through unity and ingenuity. We are capable of greatness, and the universe has recognized it. As the silent ship disappeared into the stars, Earth looked up. Knowing that the encounter had changed everything, humanity had been tested, and it had triumphed. The world had learned to work together, to innovate, and to face the unknown with courage. The lesson was clear. The greatest strength of humanity lay not in its weapons, its technology, or its wealth, but in the minds and hearts of its people, united in purpose and determination. The story of the new ship that entered orbit silently had come to an end, but its impact would last for generations. Humanity had proven itself to an intelligence far beyond their own, and in doing so, had discovered the full measure of its potential. The universe was vast and mysterious, but Earth had shown that when humans work together, think creatively, and act with courage, there is no challenge they cannot meet. And so, life continued on Earth, forever changed. The ship's light was gone, but its lessons remained. People worked together, dreamed boldly, and explored their world and the universe beyond with renewed hope. Humanity had been tested and had triumphed, not through dominance, not through fear, but through the very best qualities of their nature: intelligence, creativity, courage, and unity. The final stage of the strange test began quietly, without any warning. The ship continued to float in the sky, calm and silent. But people across Earth felt something had changed. The lights on its surface no longer moved in repeating patterns. Instead, they shifted slowly, as if the ship was preparing for something important. Scientists noticed this first, then leaders, then the public. Everyone held their breath, waiting for what would come next. Commander Elena Vasquez watched the ship from the International Space Station. She felt a strong sense of expectation. The ship had tested humanity in many ways already, through puzzles, signals, and complex simulations. Elena believed the final stage would decide everything. She looked at her crew. They understood without any words that something big was approaching. Down on Earth, Dr. Elena Reyes and her team prepared their systems again. Even though they had slept very little in the last days, their eyes were bright with determination. Everyone knew they were part of something far beyond anything humanity had experienced. The world had become one giant team. People who had never spoken to each other before were now working side by side, sharing ideas and helping solve challenges that affected everyone. Children helped by observing patterns and drawing ideas. Farmers shared climate data. Programmers built models in real time. Even people who felt they had no special skill found ways to contribute. Humanity was acting like one single mind with millions of hands. Suddenly, the ship released a soft, white glow. It expanded slowly, surrounding the ship in a calm light that reached the edges of the sky. The light did not harm anything, nor did it create fear. Instead, it felt warm, like a sign of peace. But at the same time, it was a signal. The final test had begun. The ship projected a new sequence toward Earth. This time, it was not a puzzle or a simulation. It was something more complex, something that felt alive. The projection showed a network of changing shapes, moving lines, shifting colors, and rising patterns. It looked like a map of possibilities, connections, choices, and outcomes. Scientists immediately tried to analyze it, but they realized that this challenge needed more than logic. It needed imagination, unity, and emotional understanding. Dr. Reyes said quietly, "This is not a problem we can solve alone. This is something all of humanity must answer together." Across the world, people gathered in open fields, rooftops, beaches, and city squares. They watched the projection with their eyes and hearts. Many felt something special, almost like an emotion coming from the shapes and colors. Some said it felt like hope. Others said it felt like possibility. Others said it felt like a mirror showing what humanity could become. On the ISS, Vasquez felt the same emotion. "It's not testing our machines," she said softly. "It's testing our minds, our hearts, our ability to see beyond ourselves." Scientists shared every update instantly. Artists shared interpretations. Musicians turned the shapes into sound patterns. Mathematicians turned the colors into equations. Teachers asked students for ideas, and many ideas from children surprised the experts because they were so clear and creative. Slowly, humanity realized the truth. The projection was not asking for a single solution. It was asking for understanding. It was asking whether humans could see the beauty and complexity, could cooperate without fear, could recognize meaning even when the meaning was not simple. Humanity responded the only way it could, by working together. Groups from different countries combined their interpretations. They created a system that translated shapes into messages and messages into responses. These responses were sent back to the ship in pulses of light, sound, and mathematical signals. The ship reacted gently each time. When humans understood something correctly, the projection brightened. When they misunderstood, the projection dimmed, but never punished them. It simply waited for humans to try again. Hours turned to days. No one felt tired. Everyone felt inspired. They knew this was the moment that would define their place in the universe. Eventually, humanity found a rhythm. People who did not even speak the same language were working side by side. Communities that had once disagreed found common ground. People listened more, learned more, and respected ideas from everywhere. Humanity was demonstrating not just intelligence, but unity. Finally, after a long period of collaboration, the global team created a single message. It was not made of numbers or formulas or complicated machines. It was made of harmony, patterns that showed cooperation, creativity, kindness, and hope for the future. It was a message that only humans could create because it came from millions of minds working as one. The message was sent. The world fell silent. Children stopped talking. Scientists stopped typing. Even the oceans and winds seemed quiet. Everyone waited. The ship's light paused, then glowed brighter than ever before. Slowly, carefully, it sent a soft ripple of light toward Earth. The ripple wrapped around the planet like a warm blanket. Nobody felt fear. Instead, they felt recognition. Like the ship was saying, "I see you, I understand you, and you have succeeded." In the next moment, a gentle wave of information appeared on screens and instruments across Earth. Languages, diagrams, ideas, and technologies, shared not as commands but as gifts. The ship was offering knowledge that could help humanity grow, create clean energy, heal the environment, and explore space safely. It was not giving power, it was giving possibility. Cheers broke out worldwide. People hugged, cried, laughed, and celebrated. For the first time in history, Earth felt like one family. Every person knew they had played a part, no matter how small. Even those who had simply hoped for success had contributed to the global spirit of unity. On the ISS, Vasquez and her crew were overwhelmed with emotion. She whispered, "We did it. All of us. Together." Dr. Reyes, surrounded by her team on Earth, felt tears in her eyes. "It didn't want to see how strong we were," she said. "It wanted to see how united we could be." The ship began to rise slowly. Its lights shimmered in soft waves, almost as if it were saying goodbye. It moved higher and higher, leaving behind a trail of calm light. People across Earth watched it rise, feeling both gratitude and wonder. Eventually, the ship disappeared into the dark sky, leaving Earth forever changed. But its departure did not bring sadness. It brought purpose. Humanity now had new knowledge, new hope, and a new belief in itself. Countries worked together more than ever before. Scientists built clean, efficient technologies based on the ship's shared information. Students began studying the universe with excitement, dreaming of exploring distant stars one day. Communities that once disagreed learned to cooperate. People remembered how they worked together during the test and used that same spirit to solve everyday problems. Cities improved their energy systems. Farmers received better tools. Teachers gained new knowledge. The whole planet moved forward. The satellite networks were rebuilt using new technology. Communication systems became stronger and more reliable. The world was more connected than ever before. Humanity had stepped into a brighter future. Months later, Vasquez looked out from the ISS, watching Earth glowing softly beneath her. She remembered every moment of the test, every challenge, every doubt, and every achievement. She thought about how billions of people had come together, not out of fear, but out of hope and unity. She whispered, "We were tested by something far more advanced than us. But we were not chosen because we were perfect. We were chosen because we learn, we adapt, and we create. That is our strength." Back on Earth, children listened to stories about the ship with wide, excited eyes. They dreamed of the stars, imagining what other wonders might be waiting in distant galaxies. They believed in themselves because humanity had already proven something extraordinary. That humans could rise above fear, think together, and meet challenges with courage and imagination. The ship had come silently. It had tested them deeply, and it had left them stronger, wiser, and united. The world knew now that the universe was vast, but humans were ready to be part of it, not through force, but through creativity, cooperation, and understanding. As time passed, humanity changed. They built new systems, explored new ideas, and prepared for the future with confidence. They remembered the test not as a moment of danger, but as the moment they discovered their true strength. Earth had faced something unknown, and had answered with unity. And now, whenever people looked up at the night sky, they no longer felt alone. They felt inspired by the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, the ship traveled quietly, carrying the memory of humans who worked together and proved their place in the universe. Humanity had triumphed, not through power, but through the best qualities of the human spirit: cooperation, creativity, hope, and unity. And that triumph became the beginning of a new chapter for Earth, one filled with possibility, peace, and the courage to reach for the stars.